A washi box!
Whoa, 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 whoa. That's right, everyone, it's Halo time. We are revisiting the year 2001 with their first release, Halo Combat Evolved. But you didn't expect this game from a squishy fella like me. However, you are correct in your assumption that this time we are looking at one of Josh's favourite games. Grab yourself a warm blanket, some snacks, and a cozy drink because this one's going to be long.
Halo Combat Evolved is a game that needs no introduction. It has influenced countless games and is largely responsible for the Xbox's initial success and sustained popularity. It was a cultural phenomenon during its own time, and it started a series which would dominate the video game industry from 2001 to 2010. Despite being surpassed by games that greatly expand upon what was demonstrated here, we still believe that there is a lot to learn and see from Halo Combat Evolved. Halo holds an incredibly important place in my heart, and I simply wish to honor that and tell you why I like Halo. Like many lifelong passions, it starts with childhood. My dad was an avid player of Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament when I was young, and showed me them when I was 4. I immediately fell in love with the grungy industrial sci-fi aesthetic and slick lightning fast gameplay. My dad was studying IT at the time and heard about Microsoft launching the original Xbox. He was right there when it launched in New Zealand in 2002, and somewhere along the way he introduced me to Halo. I suppose it was inevitable given our adoration for grungy sci-fi shooters. From this first experience of Halo comes one of my core memories, the death zoom out on the bridge above the control room during assaults on the control room. Unfortunately, until Halo the Master Chief Collection, released in 2014, I genuinely could not remember what level it was, just this random memory that seemingly came from nowhere. I fell in love with Halo immediately, and I suspect it has to do with 3 key factors: the music, the aesthetic, and the gameplay loop. Having played for so long, and particularly from so young, I don't remember a lot of specific memories of the game, other than the control room and the demo level, the Silent Cartographer. To be honest, most of my clear memories come from the Master Chief Collection. Despite the controversy surrounding the Master Chief Collection, and I played it at launch, so believe me, I know, I must give credit where credit is due. I would not have been able to play Halo in the modern era without it. So Halo and I have history. However, I have someone with me who doesn't have the same history, and I believe her personal story with Halo is more emblematic of Halo's relevance and continued influence.
And I am that someone in question. I definitely have an odd relationship with Halo. When Josh and I first met, I recall expressing my love of games to him, and alongside that, how much I hated shooters like Call of Duty and Halo. Essentially, this was my way of trying to filter out dating options who only liked competitive shooters. I was sick of meeting guys whose perspective on gaming was narrow and hyperfixated on that one genre. Particularly, it felt like they looked down on me because I didn't like the real games. However, since then, Josh has changed my opinion about Halo. I'm still not a fan of the multiplayer aspect, which is really what I was referring to when I expressed my hatred, but I was unaware that it had a fascinating campaign with an engaging story. All my memories of playing Halo prior to Josh were my cousin and brother ganging up on me in the multiplayer, which was not fun, except for when I found a specific spot in front of an elevator where I could camp, screen watch, and kill them with 99% accuracy. Unsurprisingly, that got boring after a while also. Enter the year 2023, and I feel like I can really appreciate the game a lot. Whilst it's not my favourite game, I've become incredibly enamoured with the aesthetic, music, and characters.
I too share your admiration. Halo as a franchise has some of the greatest music, gameplay, level design, and stories of all time. But what we see in Halo Combat Evolved is many ideas and concepts that will not see their potential fully realized within this game, such as the weapon sandbox, the vehicle levels, and world building. What is presented is still incredibly compelling. The game features an, at the time, unique control scheme featuring dual analog stick controls, where the left stick moved the camera forwards, left, right, and backwards relative to where the camera was pointing. It also featured a 2-weapon system, directly contrasting with the vast majority of shooters that came before it. Your player character, the titular Master Chief, also moved slower than most other shooters. Halo clearly wasn't a Doom/Quake ripoff. However, it also wasn't a GoldenEye/Perfect Dark ripoff either, as it didn't have tank controls. You shoot with the right trigger, throw grenades with the left trigger, jump with A, bash with B, and swap weapons with Y. The general interaction button is X, which is also reload. This control layout was essentially codified into the standard shooter layout from then on, and is still mostly present even today.
Now let's put these controls to the test with our first level, the Pillar of Autumn.
Before we begin, some preamble. The year is 2552, the mid-26th century. Overpopulation has forced humanity to seek other worlds for colonization efforts, and this is facilitated by faster-than-light travel. The leading organization guiding this expansion effort is the Unified Earth Government, the United Nations Space Command, or UNSC. Millions of humans now live on other habitable planets outside the Sol system. A keystone of humanity's colonization efforts is the planet Reach, an interstellar naval yard that builds colony ships for civilians and warships for the UNSC's armed forces. Reach is conveniently close to Earth and is a hub of scientific and military activity. 32 years ago, contact with the outer colony Harvest was lost. A battle group sent to investigate was almost completely destroyed. Only one badly damaged ship returned to Reach. Its crew told of a seemingly unstoppable alien force that had effortlessly annihilated them. This was humanity's first encounter with the fanatical alien collective known as the Covenant. The religious elders of the Covenant declared humanity an affront to the gods, and thus began the Human Covenant War. After a series of crushing defeats and obliterated colonies, UNSC Admiral Preston Cole established the Cole Protocol. No vessel may inadvertently lead the Covenant to Earth. If making an emergency withdrawal, all UNSC ships must avoid Earthbound vectors, even if that means making a blind jump. The only alternative is to self-destruct the ship. On Reach, a secret military project is initiated to create cyborg super soldiers known as the Spartan 2s. They rack up an impressive number of success stories when test deployed against the Covenant, but there are too few of them to turn the tide of the war. Existing Spartan 2s are recalled to Reach for further augmentation to allow them to board a Covenant vessel to learn the location of the Covenant home world. 2 days before this mission begins, the Covenant attacks Reach and obliterates the colony. Earth is now at risk. Only one ship escapes Reach, the Pillar of Autumn. With the last known Spartan 2 on board in cryo-sleep, the ship makes a blind jump into deep space, hoping to lead the Covenant away from Earth. With this, the first mission begins with a cutscene. We resume mere moments after the Pillar of Autumn has jumped from Reach, and to our horror, the Covenant are already here. The opening shot is of a strange ring structure in space, seemingly orbiting a planet. It then cuts to establishing shots of the Pillar of Autumn before panning into the bridge of the ship and introducing us to Captain Jacob Keyes and the chatty AI Cortana. The situation seems dire and time is short, so Keyes gives the order to Cortana to get everyone ready for battle, including our aforementioned friend in cryosleep. We then cut to the UNSC Marines preparing for boarding, and we are introduced to the charismatic gung-ho Sergeant Johnson, who gives the Marines a pep talk. Before long, our protagonist awakens. His name is unimportant, for he is only known by his rank, Master Chief. After a brief tutorial section, you make your way towards the bridge with no weapon, narrowly avoiding direct confrontation with Covenant forces. Once on the bridge, Keyes briefs you on the situation, indicating that he is enacting the Cole Protocol and going down with the ship, in a manner of speaking. Cortana is then uploaded onto a chip that can be inserted into the back of Chief's helmet so she can accompany him during combat. Keyes gives us our first weapon, the trusty Magnum, and we are set on our way, ready to encounter our first grunt.
This level. The first time I played this, I kept running in circles. I felt like an absolute goober. I couldn't tell where I was going because of the dim lighting. If my optometrist needed any evidence that I needed glasses, all she needed was this. I have replayed it since getting my glasses, and I do feel like a fool for getting lost in this part. I recall whilst I was running around, an elite popped out from behind a wall making a noise and gave me a fright. That image is forever stuck in my mind. Let's take a look at this first enemy type. The elites are a species of strong and proud warriors who are the backbone of the Covenant due to their impressive battle tactics. They are equipped with a variety of weapons such as grenades, plasma rifles, and the shockingly deadly energy sword, which has caused many gamers to throw their controllers in annoyance. They display a decent level of defense, employing techniques such as dodging and strafing when engaging an enemy. They are one of the most common enemy types you will encounter alongside grunts whom they lead. Pay attention, soldier. Let's analyze those grunts next. These guys are my personal favorite because they remind me of the hops from Fable. They never failed to make us laugh in the heat of battle with their silly noises and questionable tactics. They are certainly not the best fighters, but hey, they came along. That counts, right? They're considered the lowest rank in the hierarchy, and for a good reason. They essentially act as cannon fodder, standing right in the line of fire with no defensive techniques other than running away screaming. They tend to use plasma pistols, but some prefer the needler. What makes Halo's combat fun is the different tactics that you must employ when fighting various enemy types. The first couple are pretty simple. With grunts, you'll likely survive running in guns blazing, granted that you aren't playing on legendary mode. However, with elites you may need to use some melee attacks to finish them off since they are stronger, have personal regenerative energy shields, and are good at dodging. As the level progresses, you will begin to get the hang of how the combat works. It comes to an end with Master Chief getting into an escape pod with the surviving Marines.
Surviving for now.
Whilst Keyes continues to pilot the Pillar of Autumn, they proceed towards the ominous ring for an emergency landing.
Halo. Halo begins with us crash landing on the ring and every Marine dies on impact. Sad way to start us off, but you're quickly distracted by the mysterious beauty of this ominous alien deep space ring world. If you look out towards the horizon, you can see it slowly disappear into the ring's curvature, and you can follow the ring all the way up in a circle above you and then all the way back down the other side. It is truly an incredible first impression, and it must be said that Bungie's skyboxes have always been jaw-dropping.
Cortana informs us that the Covenant are on our trail, and that we must keep moving if we are to hope they suspect we died in the crash. Strong suspenseful music begins, which makes for an eerie juxtaposition to the sparkling scenery, the calming waterfalls and still ocean failing to trick us.
Our sightseeing is interrupted by the sounds of approaching ships from behind. The Covenant have found us. This level introduces the Covenant Spirit, a U-shaped troop transport that carries enemy squads directly into battle. It is escorted by the agile Banshees, personal lightweight flyers armed with plasma weapons.
Once you have beat the Banshees, small alien sounds can be heard somewhere briefly, causing you to wonder if what you really heard was real. And indeed it was, as the appearance of a couple grunts and elites greets you. After you have fought them, it's time to continue your walk amongst the sounds of luscious waterfalls, alien birds, and your own footsteps. The sound design of this game is incredible at making you feel on edge yet somewhat relaxed simultaneously. We continue on walking, defeating a scattered Covenant as we go. After a moment, we come upon a clearing in which Cortana informs us she is detecting life signs. Her detection was correct because here we come across some friends of ours fighting Covenant.
Our goal for this mission is to round up the scattered Marine forces that survived the evacuation of the Pillar of Autumn and attempt to launch a rescue mission.
Here we will also encounter a new enemy type, the Jackals. The Jackals are known as the assassins for the Covenant due to their superior sense of smell and sight. They are armed with plasma pistols and an energy shield, which makes fighting them more of a challenge. Without this shield, they are rather weak, so you must wait for the right moment to position before attacking them. A pretty good technique is to opt for a melee attack. One thing to note about this area is the big lasers that keeps firing into the sky. I have no idea what this is for, but it looks cool. After a well-fought battle, a Pelican takes some of our Marines to safety and deploys our first vehicle, the Warthog.
The Warthog is one of the most iconic vehicles in any game ever, period. Its most basic iteration features a minigun mounted on the back, a passenger seat and a driver's seat, and this trio of seats has driven many to some of their fondest memories of gaming. The handling of the Warthog in Halo is not perfect and compared to later games is quite slidey and sluggish, but is still a ton of fun to drive around in, and really is the next piece of the Halo puzzle with regards to what makes it so unique and fun compared to its contemporaries. It shakes up the basic shooter formula with the driving segments and is part of what I've always loved about Halo. There are not that many other games that come to mind when thinking of this approach to level design. Exploring the ring's ominous rolling green hills has never felt cooler.
I personally find it rather reminiscent of the Mako from Mass Effect for me. Ah, the Mako. We then drive off with two Marines by our side into a structure that is not naturally formed. Inside we encounter a bunch of enemies who we promptly kill with our new war machine. Our next objective is to activate the bridge. I get stuck at this bit every time, which Josh laughs at me for, but he has played this a million times. How rude. It's totally hidden where to go. Anyways, after looking around, we manage to find a path upstairs where we can find the activation panel. A light bridge shoots out, accompanied by some suspenseful music. Time to hop back into the Warthog with our buds. From here, we leave the structure whilst Cortana boasts how many Marines managed to survive thanks to Captain Keyes. We might really have a chance. We come back in the open again with some triumphant yells from our Marines and victory music. The game guides us down a path using lights to tell us where to go. After saving some more Marines, Cortana tells us that the Covenant have found the Pillar of Autumn crash site. Once we've saved our last group, she tells us that Captain Keyes is being held on a Covenant cruiser called Truth and Reconciliation that has landed on a desert plateau. Our evac arrives and we are taken to our next location, Truth and Reconciliation.
The goal of this mission is to rescue Captain Keyes and a small retinue of Marines from the Covenant ship the Truth and Reconciliation, captured during the chaos of the landing of the Pillar of Autumn. To do this, Master Chief and his posse must quote-unquote sneak into the ship by fighting their way to the gravity lift under the ship. This is essentially Halo's attempt at a stealth level. It begins with Master Chief and a small squad of Marines with Sergeant Johnson being airdropped in from a Pelican onto a high-up ridge under the cover of darkness. Through a narrow ravine, you are presented with the low ground or the high ground just out of sight of the Covenant outpost up ahead.
It's best to take the high ground here and stealth kill as many enemies as you can with your sniper rifle. I'm a sneaky gal, so I love this part. Make sure you focus on those gun turrets and elites.
Before long, the Covenant will notice you, and thus the battle begins.
And yes, you can hop in those gun turrets yourself too. This mission is great to play together, particularly if you are like Josh and I, where one of us prefers a sneaky sniper approach and the other loves going in guns blazing. The music in this level is also excellent. It switches between drums of war with your fellow Marines yelling victory speech to a more serene version as you get further into the heat of battle. It perfectly matches the dark and elegant scenery, which features an ominous planet watching over you. In the next section, you are required to flank the left side, going unnoticed while your Marines move in through the middle. We highly recommend you play this on the classic mode rather than with the new graphics, as the newer ones make it way too easy to see everything. Where is the sneakiness in that, you know? It also makes the needler explosions look way better because the pink glow is up against a dark background. Whilst fighting your way through, you can also pick up an item which provides camouflage, which allows for you to walk right up to enemies and shoot them in the head without them even seeing you coming. We then pass through a gap to our next section where we see the gravity lift surrounded by some enemies and gun turrets. There are waves of enemies in this section, which makes for the perfect opportunity to take the gun turret and deplete their forces with ease. This battle was tougher on your Marines, causing them to express surprise regarding their survival and wishing to go home.
You are then introduced to another new type of enemy, the lumbering worm beast. Yes, this is true, known as the hunter. Actually, you encounter two of them because hunters always come in pairs. They carry massive energy beams and huge hulking shields, and they will either engage you from afar with the energy beam or charge you with the shields. They are virtually impenetrable from the front and thus must be damaged in the gaps of their blue armor. Essentially, aim for the orange parts. The biggest orange part is on their back, and here's a little tip. Any weapon that is capable of insta-killing enemies from headshots can instantly kill hunters in Halo 1. Not in any other Halo game except Halo 1.
This gives you the perfect opportunity to put those sneaking skills that you've been honing in on to the test and hit them in the back. After they've been defeated, you may proceed into the gravity lift. Once on board, you are presented with completely foreign alien architecture. Cortana tells us no Covenant are detected on board, to everyone's surprise. That doesn't last long though.
You are promptly ambushed by invisible elites carrying a crazy new lethal weapon known as the Energy Sword. Humans beware, for this weapon will almost always instantly kill you. No, you may not pick it up. Sorry.
After fighting off the ambush, you then proceed to move towards a big door as per your fellow Marines' recommendation. Unfortunately, it is locked, so you must go alone through the side passages to find a way to unlock it for them.
The Truth and Reconciliation is a labyrinth, and if it is your first time playing Halo, the truth is that you will get lost at some point. Reorienting yourself is a key part of older shooters, as it helps cement level layout by forcing the player to take mental notes of level details to help navigate the maze. Prepare yourself, for this will not be the last maze-like level in the game. Far from it.
This layout causes you to constantly be on guard at any turn because multiple doors can suddenly open with enemies flooding out on all sides, causing you to be quick on your toes, much opposed to the first half of the level. Although, as you traverse throughout the ship, it allows you to do a mix of both, which makes for extremely fun and varied combat. After fighting off another ambush, you are able to open the door and reunite with your Marines. You must continue further on into the ship. A large door opens and you watch as a Covenant spirit departs into space. enemies. You are then interrupted by enemies surrounding you with bullets. You must fight off hordes of enemies until Cortana can get the door unlocked. This level is perfect for using the Needler because there is plenty of ammo and enemies get tightly grouped easily. Once it's open, you are back in small corridors again. Be careful in here because some dummies like to deploy grenades, which messes everything up for both sides. It also pays to be observant of your surroundings, as many camouflage elites scatter these halls. We proceed into a docking bay where we open the doors for more of our reinforcements to enter, including our favourite man, Sergeant Johnson. Cue the victory music. Continuing, you find the command center where the Marines decide to stay whilst you head on alone again. Being alone makes it all the more creepier, causing you to look both ways every time you walk through a door.
You then stumble into the prison block and rescue Captain Keyes along with several Marines who commend your efforts.
Keyes reprimands you for being reckless, but thanks you all the same. He tells you that he overheard the Covenant calling this ring world Halo. Looking into their battle net, Cortana tells us it seems to have some religious significance. It's described as some kind of weapon with vast, unimaginable power, and that whoever controls Halo controls the fate of the universe. Cortana says she's heard them searching for a control room, which she now realizes must be for Halo. This is very bad news because if Halo really is a weapon and the Covenant gain control, who knows what they will do? We must get to it before they do. Time to head for evac. Our usual ship is being attacked by Covenant air patrol, so our only option is to take one of the Covenant dropships.
The Silent Cartographer. This is one of the most iconic levels in Halo's history, period. If you were around back in the day, this level was noteworthy as it was the demo level that everyone played back when demos were still a thing. It features all the elements of a classic Halo level, and I cannot overstate how much I love this level. It holds an incredibly special place in my heart as one of the most defining experiences of the entire original Xbox generation. As a side note, it's interesting that Bungie also seemed to feel this way about this level, as some of my favorite levels from future Halo games are in essence just remixed versions of the Silent Cartographer, such as Delta Halo from Halo 2 or the Covenant from Halo 3. The level begins with a cutscene of UNSC Pelicans flying in low to drop off Chief and some Marines in a hot landing zone to establish a beachhead so they can find the map of the Halo ring to locate the control room. The perspective then changes to Chief's point of view as the Pelicans do a flyover of the artificial island and land the troops. The transition to gameplay is awesome as you are just dropped right in the thick of it. Marines on all sides charging towards the Covenant positions. The Covenant have energy barricades set up and the ensuing fight is a rush to overwhelm the Covenant as quickly as possible. Once the initial engagement is over, a Pelican returns with a Warthog and Chief is tasked with finding a way into the interior of the island, with all entrances currently heavily defended by Covenant forces. This is where my favorite part of this level begins. The whole level is essentially an experiment in completely open level design, as there are multiple ways to enter the interior complex and you are free to explore the island and find your own way in. There is definitely an intended path, but it is still loose enough with guidance that you can truly find your own way through the level. The island itself is the entire level, so you can drive the Warthog around the entire island with no loading screens or barriers. It is such a creative piece of level design, technologically impressive for 2001. There are no new enemy types introduced in this level. This is Halo saying, I've introduced you to all my elements and I trust that you understand how I work. Have fun!
The Covenant managed to lock a door that prevents us from getting further into the complex. Standing behind is an elite carrying an energy sword. How very discomforting. We now need to find a security override to get through. But before we do that, allow yourself to take a second and sit amongst the sand, watch the clouds roll over and listen to the sparkling sound of the waves while we give our Needler a quick clean. Halo has many pockets of peace and serenity if you allow them to find you. And perhaps this is one of the key parts that made me change my mind about this game. I think having moments like this in games that are extremely chaotic and tragic makes it feel all the more human. The variation of emotions you would realistically be experiencing in the midst of grim times such as these would be so plentiful. I think that's why I've struggled to engage with many popular shooters at first, since it feels like they don't often allow you those moments. But as I play more, I begin to understand the other ways in which they immerse you, which I can appreciate too. Halo also plays your heartstrings with its music, with songs that bring Josh to tears every time they're played, because he feels such a strong connection to the characters, the story, and the world.
Hey, are you about done there, soldier? Time to get back to the task at hand. Stop mucking around.
Apologies, Sergeant. We continue driving, and soon we come upon an opening which will allow us to go deeper into more of these alien structures. Ominous music plays as we continue inside. We look out to see a seemingly endless abyss surrounding us. Ahead there are blinking lights which we must assume to be the security override we are looking for. We trigger the lock, causing the energy sword elite from earlier to be alert. We must be careful. Reinforcements arrive as we make our way back to the door. Additionally, we now have the option of a rocket launcher at our disposal. Once through the door, Master Chief looks upon the alien interior in wonder. It's certainly a long way down. After fighting your way through the spooky corridors, you eventually come upon the Silent Cartographer. Cortana concludes that the control center is located inside some type of shrine. Additionally, Captain Keyes has lost contact with us. Time to fight our way back out of this place while listening to some epic electric guitar music. Watch as you turn that last corner, because there is that energy sword elite from earlier waiting to land a cheeky one on us.
The level ends and you are exfiltrated out of the area via Pelican. Objective: assault on the control room. This level is the longest level so far and features a huge shift in the general vibe and aesthetic of the levels. It is firstly a snow level and features a significantly larger amount of internal Forerunner structures. The alien architecture that you briefly saw hints of in previous levels is on full display here. Endless unsettling corridors of gold-grey walls with strange patterns and markings etched into them fill the level, and when you exit the interiors you are greeted with impossibly high cliff faces and narrow ravines. Unlike the previous level, this level is much more linear. However, it features mini set-piece areas that allow you small amounts of freedom in how you approach combat in between funneling you down more narrow linear sections.
We first drop in on a platform full of unknowing grunts and give them a heck of a fright. They go quickly into cover, allowing us to marvel at the wondrous structure we have entered. Fighting our way through, we exit into the open for the first time. The snowflakes lining the air are somewhat of a comforting sight, perhaps because they are natural rather than artificial. It is perplexing why such a thing would occur on a world that was intended to be a weapon. We then traverse through a series of tight corridors with creepy underground windows that seemingly go nowhere. We fight our way through before we are pushed out into the open again in a much larger area this time. In the distance, the glow of gun turret blasts polish the frosty air.
Here we are introduced to new vehicles for both the UNSC and the Covenant, including the UNSC Scorpion tank, another instantly recognizable piece of Halo's visual footprint, the Covenant Ghost, a small single personnel speeder armed with plasma blasters, and finally the Covenant Wraith, an artillery tank that fires a plasma cannon with an arc, and is the counter to the Scorpion. The asymmetry of the different units, vehicles, and weapons of the UNSC and the Covenant is part of the genius of Halo's gameplay sandbox, as both sides fight and play incredibly differently.
This part takes us through a series of vistas where you will battle in vehicles of your choice over icy lakes. Moving swiftly through glowing caves with our marines who keep the sides of our Scorpion covered, we can now kill the scariest of Covenant with ease using our cannon. Continuing onwards, we are back inside again. The interior structures in this area are just as beautiful as the views outside. The artificial walls here twinkle like the night sky. This level focuses heavily on the journey to your next objective, engulfing you with delicate aesthetics and extremely fun gameplay which is better experienced than described. Josh will further describe the level's general structure, as detailed descriptions can become repetitive as it is gameplay focused rather than story focused.
The general structure of the level can be hard to remember due to it being an almost endless labyrinth of hallways, rooms, and ice valleys, but it can help put things in perspective. I will simply provide you with a brief blueprint of the level. From the Pelican drop-off, you enter room 1, a chasm room. From here you cross a large bridge into another room with a tower in the middle. You then go down an elevator and into another room with a glass energy tower in the center. From here you are outside for the first time into the first ice valley. Proceeding on, you will find an iced over lake with a Scorpion tank. Through the first small cave you will exit into the second ice valley. After this, the first Forerunner cave awaits, which exits out into the Forerunner chasm, which exits back out through the second Forerunner cave into the wide open ice valley with a big pillar in the center. Through another another cave, you will find hunters and an exit to an icy ravine with a ramp that leads to a frozen river. From here you pass through the final cave and into the final ice valley and make your way back inside. Once inside, you will go up the second elevator, through another energy tower room, and out onto the second bridge. After this, you will enter the tower room that leads into a long hallway with ramps off to the left. This transitions to a room within a room, and then onto the third and final large bridge. You then enter another chasm room, followed by another long hallway and a final energy tower room with hunters before proceeding outside for the second time. After much journeying, we finally reach the control room. We are greeted with a snowy bridge that crosses perpendicular to the control room. There are already enemies rushing into position, particularly an elite that is pining to get inside the Banshee. Across the bridge is the intended path for the player to take to reach the ground level, but you can just as well steal the Banshee or jump off the bridge and get to the bottom. Heading through the third and final exterior, you will enter an energy tower room, followed by an elevator that exits into another room within a room. This is our final room, as after this we make our way outside for the third and final time. There you will find a Wraith and some surprisingly thin Covenant defenses as you scale the approach to the control room. However, Chief soon learns why the defenses were seemingly thin. As you open the door, there is a horde of Covenant rushing towards you, led by an elite commander with an energy sword. Once you have dispatched the hidden Covenant enemies, you discover the goal of the mission, the control room itself. Within it, Cortana is made privy to some terrible secrets.
We arrive in the control room. It is the cavernous structure with a hologram of the Halo ring map floating around it. In the center, there is the planet that the ring orbits. Chief presses the control panel and up pops Cortana, amazed at the wealth of knowledge that she has uncovered. Chief's first question is what sort of weapon it is so that they can use it against the Covenant. Cortana immediately dismisses him. There is a much bigger purpose for the structure that he is ignorant to. She tells us the Forerunners built this place, a fortress world, in order to... Wait, that can't be. Oh, the Covenant. They must have known. There must have been signs. Cortana immediately begins to panic and the music gets increasingly disturbing. The Covenant found something buried within this ring, something horrible, and now they are afraid. We must now stop the captain because the weapons cache that he is looking for is not a weapons cache at all. It's something far more existential. No time to waste. We must get to him before it's too late.
343 Guilty Spark. This is the level that makes you completely reevaluate your impressions on Halo up until this point. Talking about it in depth feels almost criminal due to the complete shift in tone and the, shall we say, introduction of something until now unknown. It goes without saying, but spoilers abound. 343 Guilty Spark begins with Master Chief being airdropped via Pelican into an ominous foggy swamp that is unlike any previous area we've been to thus far. The opening cutscene jarringly shows grunts and jackals running away from something that is at this stage an unknown quantity. The music is eerie and uncomfortable. No melody, just atmospheric drones and chilling wisps of discontented notes.
This area feels much more whimsical than the others, with glowing trees and vines swaying in the wind. This setting feels reminiscent of Kashyyyk's Shadowlands from KOTOR, or an area in Guild Wars to me. The captain's last transmission was located in this area, which was over 12 hours ago. We are guided through this area by following lights that line the ground. Dead Covenant who we did not kill litter the area, which leaves a very bad feeling in our stomachs. What is it the Covenant found that has Cortana so horrified? And if we aren't killing these Covenant, who is? We walk through shallow ravines and climb along overgrown tree branches, killing off stragglers as we go.
All you can do is follow the path of destruction, and at its end you will find it converges on the entrance to a great bunker. More grunts and jackals flee from its entrance, leaving you guessing, where are the elites?
Inside we find a large elevator that leads us down into the structure. Once it reaches the bottom, we find the Covenant holding position behind shields. At this point we are so used to them hiding behind rocks and doors, waiting to ambush us. Placing large shields does not have any of the subtlety that the usual tactics display, and they seem almost unaware of our imminent arrival, as if they were distracted by something else. Going through another passageway, we open up to a big room with more enemies who are facing their weapons in the opposite direction to you. There is an odd green ooze dropping from the ceiling. Moving on through the next next corridor, we encounter a bloodbath of Covenant accompanied by more green ooze. In the room past that, we find plenty of shields and ammo lying around, but no Covenant in sight. Stay back! Stay back! They're turning me into one of those things! We hear a panicked Marine yell in the distance. Walking through, we find him in cover with his gun pointed at us, telling us of monsters he saw and how all he could do was play dead. He's so terrified that if you try to take a step towards him, he immediately opens fire. He cries out, listing off all the people he was with who were killed. It seems he is the only one left. You can either kill him here or continue on. The first time I played this, I immediately killed him before he could deliver his dialogue out of instinct, and I don't think I'm alone in that. Past the troubled man, we find a room lit with green. The blue blood of Covenant is splattered across the walls and ground everywhere. We continue up a ramp where there is a fire broken out underneath. We then arrive on the upper level of the room where we were previously, walking through a door with an ominous red symbol on either side. It leads us down a ramp, the music slowly building as Chief nervously approaches the next door. As it opens, a dead Marine flops on top of him, his weight previously being held up by the door. He gently places the soldier down, keeping his gun at the ready as he looks around for what killed him and all those Covenant. He picks up Jenkins' helmet in despair. Inside, he finds a helmet cam and plugs it in to watch the footage back.
Why do we always have to listen to this old stuff, Sarge?
Watch your mouth, son. This stuff is your history. It should remind you grunts what we're fighting to protect.
Hey, if the Covenant want to wipe out this particular part of my history, that's fine by me.
Yeah, better it than us.
You ask them real nice next time you see him, Vicente. I'm sure they'll be happy to oblige.
LZ looks clear. I'm bringing us down.
Go, go, go! Stay close, Jenkins. Mendoza, move it up! Wait here for the captain and his squad, then get your ass inside.
Sir!
Okay, let's move!
Which is weird, right? I mean, look at it. Something scrambled the insides.
What's that? Plasma scoring?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was an accident, friendly fire or something?
What do we have, Sergeant?
Looks like a Covenant patrol. Badass elite units. All KIA.
Real pretty. Friend of yours?
Nah, we just met.
Right, well, let's get this door open.
I'll try, sir, but it looks like these Covenant worked pretty hard to lock it down.
Just do it, son.
Yes, sir. I got a bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about
Captain,
something.
Sarge, can you hear me?
What's going on, soldier?
We've got contacts, lots of them, but they're not Covenant. They're just tearing through us. What the? Oh, no!
Corporal, do you copy? Over. Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squad's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an order.
Sarge! Listen!
What is that?
Where's that coming from,
Everywhere.
Mendoza?
I don't... There! Mira!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it!
Sergeant, we're surrounded.
God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it, Marine.
Oh, this is local!
Get back here, Marine! That's an order!
Jenkins!
And thus we are introduced to the Flood.
The Flood is Halo's big secret that was never shown in advertising, not even in the game's physical manual, and is a complete sucker punch to the player. The game makes you think that it was all about fighting the Covenant and nothing else. The Forerunners are hinted at but never seen, and you're constantly misdirected by the game to not know what is truly happening. Cortana probably had some inkling, but she certainly didn't tell Chief. They are without a doubt one of my favorite enemies in any video game and completely changed the flow of gameplay. The Flood turns Halo from a sci-fi shooter into a horror game at times, and while not as scary as they once were, they are definitely still creepy. Without the Flood, I don't believe that Halo would be as fondly remembered as it is. Don't get me wrong, there are many reasons to love Halo that aren't the Flood, but they are the X factor that takes it into some truly incredible gaming territory. The whole sequence with the Flood is very reminiscent of the Alien franchise, and the minimap of Halo is clearly a reference to the motion sensors from Alien, just without the beeping. The way it sends out pulse pulse waves that show the enemy positions every time it updates is very obviously inspired by Alien and is incredibly effective at introducing the flood. You will see the red blips of the parasite forms before you see them. The first encounter is solidified as one of the best mask off moments in gaming history, and describing it here wouldn't do it justice, so I won't. In the most basic terms, you essentially fight through the level in reverse as everything collapses. Once outside, you encounter a group of surviving Marines and set up an emergency evacuation. But yet again, before you can even do this, another mysterious being, known as 343 Guilty Spark, who appears to just be a floating ball with a big glowing blue eye, floats over to Chief while whistling and is followed by a score of floating robots called Sentinels with lasers that are uncannily effective against the flood. After some fighting, Guilty Spark simply teleports Chief away and the level ends. No warning, no context. I love how this level completely turns everything on its head, and it still ends with another surprise revelation that there is still some Forerunner constructs that remain operational on the ring. Surely there is some relation to the flood, only time will tell. Anyways, onwards and upwards, literally.
Now that we've been introduced to all the weapons this game has to offer, we'd like to take you through a quick weapon guide. Human weapons. These weapons are slow, deliver strong damage against flesh, but are weak against shields. M6D pistol. Often pistols are the worst weapon in the game, but not this one. You can easily one-shot enemies with the right placement. MA5B assault rifle. Your classic assault rifle displays your ammo count, which is nice. M90 shotgun. Arguably the most effective weapon. Like the pistol, but with more oomph. S2 AM sniper rifle. Long range weapon with a scope. Slow but powerful, especially when sneaking. M19 SSM rocket launcher. Also slow and long range, unless Chief feels like giving up. Makes enemies go flying. M9 HEDP grenade. This is your standard frag grenade.
Covenant weapons. These weapons are fast, deliver weak damage against flesh, but are strong against shields. Plasma rifle. This is the standard weapon that all elites carry. It has a medium rate of fire that increases the longer you hold down the trigger. However, as with most plasma-based Covenant weapons, if you hold down the trigger too long, the weapon will overheat and you will have to wait for it to cool down before you can use it again. Plasma pistol. This is the standard weapon that most grunts and jackals will carry. It is a semi-automatic pistol, meaning it fires one shot per pull of the trigger. However, if you hold down the trigger, you will charge up a more powerful shot that homes in on targets if your firing reticle is red when you fire it, and instantly disables shields. This can be paired with certain UNSC weapons like the Magnum to quickly dispatch elites in an effective, albeit cheap way. Needler. This is perhaps the most instantly recognizable Covenant weapon, and it is quite unique in the weapon sandbox. It fires pink homing crystals, and if enough crystals connect with a single target with a short enough time frame, the crystals will create a super combine explosion on the target that will usually instantly kill the target. The more needles, the larger the explosion. It is a fun weapon. Plasma grenade. Standard Covenant grenade. It sticks to whatever surface it lands on, thus creating some interesting moments when you manage to stick it onto an enemy. Watch that you do not get yourself stuck by an unsuspecting grunt.
The library. In somewhat of a Mario fashion, we are introduced to our goal, the index. It is accompanied by extremely unsettling music, hinting at what we are about to endure. 343 Guilty Spark acts as our point of this level, leading the way through hordes of flood while humming cheerfully, laughing to himself and expressing what a genius he is. The music that plays is a clear reference to popular horror movies such as Psycho. It indicates that the flood are indeed an entity to be feared. This level drops you right in the deep end, forcing you to quickly learn how to fight the flood.
The flood can be broadly categorized into three main forms: parasite form, combat form, and carrier form. The combat form has two subcategories depending on whether they are reanimated humans or elites. The combat forms tend to carry weapons that would have previously been carried by the dead sentients. The human forms are physically weaker than the elite forms, but they can also carry the rocket launcher and the shotgun, which makes them infinitely more deadly than the elite flood. The carrier form carries parasite forms inside their bulbous heads and explode when they get too close to you. The explosions can be deadly, but they can also be utilized to create a chain reaction if there are a lot of carrier forms hitting your way. Be sure to use that to your advantage. The parasite forms will simply rush towards you, scampering around on the floors, the walls, the roof, every surface they can climb if it impedes their path to you. They do not do significant damage, but in large numbers they can be dangerous since they are hard to hit, and when they are attacking you in concert with other flood forms, they become deadly. If a carrier form explodes and takes down your shields, a single flood parasite could mean death.
Your weapons that you use to obliterate the Covenant are not going to be so useful here. They are best fought with their own weapons due to their shield takedown abilities. However, the Flood have no shields and are constantly running straight towards you, so if you use any explosive weapons, you are asking to die with them.
You may not have noticed it until this mission, but the Halo Combat Evolved shotgun is ridiculously powerful and it will serve as your trusty workhorse for the duration of this level. It is incredibly effective at mowing down Flood indiscriminately, and thus you may want to use it.
Your assault rifle is also great at taking down the parasite forms. Guilty Spark leads us through a hallway to a massive room with an energy field above us, which contains the index. After that, we continue to follow him, surrounded by beautiful twinkling walls, strange glowing architecture, and beings that want to kill you.
Truly, this is one of the most divisive levels in the entire game, let alone the entire original trilogy. You fight nothing but waves of Flood as you grind your way through 3 floors of the same disturbing alien hallways, whilst following 343 Guilty Spark to reach a device known as the Index. Thus far, its true purposes are known, at least to Master Chief. The divisiveness of this level is emblematic on a larger scale of the entire Halo community's opinions about the Flood as enemies. Some hate them and some love them. Hence, this level is a highlight for some and a chasm for others. For the entire mission, Chief is defending himself against Flood coming from all angles, and they require a completely different approach than the Covenant. There are no elites, grunts, or jackals. There are simply parasite, combat, and carrier forms. I call these ones potatoes because this level definitely instills a certain paranoia in you, as you will be assailed from all sides by the Flood. They will come from the vents, of which there are many, and they are placed all around you. The Flood do not spawn in any sort of consistent, predictable manner. Your best bet is to keep moving and not get stuck anywhere, otherwise you will find that you will quickly be cornered and overwhelmed. This level serves its purpose as a thorough lesson in how to handle fighting the Flood. Don't underestimate Rocket Launcher Flood and Shotgun Flood. You will learn through pain and suffering otherwise. You have been warned.
Guilty Spark expresses concerns that your weapons are not high enough class to deal with the Flood, but luckily Sentinels swoop in to help you throughout this level. It's certainly nice to take a break cowering behind a pillar waiting for them to kill the Horde so that you can save your precious ammo. One of my favourite parts of this level is the underground hallways scattered throughout. It's really creepy seeing the parasite Flood crawl all over the walls like spiders, and feeling helpless since there are only 2 directions that you can run in. Another favourite is when you are locked inside one room and your survival instincts kick up to the maximum. Our guide tells us the construct was created to keep the Flood inside the facility so that they can study them after their previous outbreak. I suppose they weren't expecting the determination of the Covenant to delve deeper into the facility and unknowingly release them. Another concerning discovery is that the Flood are hard at work repairing the Pillar of Autumn for their own use. After a lot of fighting, we arrive at the Index. Chief grabs it, but it's immediately snatched out of his hands by Guilty Spark, who says he shouldn't be the one to carry it since he is prone to infection.
Two Betrayals.
To Chief's surprise, Guilty Spark teleports them to the control room. He has taken us here because he doesn't have the access allowance to reunify the Index with the core, but Chief does. He inserts it and it begins to power up, but then comes to a stop.
Cortana.
I've spent the last 12 hours cooped up in here watching you toady about, helping that thing get set to slit our throats.
Hold on now. He's a friend.
Oh, I didn't realize. He's your pal, is he? Your chum? Do you have any idea what that bastard almost made you do?
The Flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
You have no idea how this ring works, do you? Why the Forerunners built it? Halo doesn't kill Flood. It kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life. You don't believe me? Ask him.
Is it true?
More or less. Technically, this installation's pulse has a maximum effective radius of 25,000 light years. But once the others follow suit, this galaxy will be quite devoid of life. Or at least any life with sufficient biomass to sustain the Flood. But you already knew that. I mean, how couldn't you?
Left out that little detail, did he?
We have followed outbreak containment procedure to the letter. You were with me each step of the way as we managed this crisis.
Chief, I'm picking up movement.
Why would you hesitate to do what you've already done?
We need to go right now.
Last time you asked me if it were my choice, would I do it? Having had considerable time to ponder your query, my answer has not changed. There is no choice. We must activate the ring.
Get us out of here.
If you are unwilling to help, I will simply find another. Still, I must have the index. Give your construct to me, or I will be forced to take it from you.
That's not going to happen.
So be it. Save his head. Dispose of the rest.
We've now gained a new enemy. We can't let the Monitor activate Halo. We have to stop him. We have to destroy Halo. Cortana's plan is to explode the ring using the Pillar of Autumn's fusion reactor, and for that we need keys or his neural interface to authorize override. Our primary objective in this mission is to destroy the phase pulse generators which power Halo to buy us some time, because the Monitor will have to fix them before the weapon can be used. That way we can reach keys without worrying about the Monitor finding a way to activate the weapon through another method.
This level marks the first of 3 missions that are just previous missions in reverse. After defeating 343, Chief proceeds to fight through Assault on the Control Room in reverse, but with several twists. You must traverse some areas with a Banshee, and you are now fighting not 1, not 2, but 3 enemies simultaneously. The Covenant, who are mostly just as scattered and confused as the humans, the Flood, who are desperately trying to consume as much biomass as possible so that they can start to form a proto-Gravemind to escape the ring. No one liked that. And the Forerunner constructs, who simply wish to follow containment procedure to eliminate the Flood. This 4-way showdown leads to some interesting moments. Interesting moments that, shall we say, begin and end with Shotgun Flood and Rocket Launcher Flood.
This level is awesome, forcing you to constantly switch techniques and weapons to fight various enemy types. One of my favourite moments is when you're going down an elevator and parasites are falling on top of you and crawling along the walls down towards you. They're my favourite Flood type. I'm not sure if you could tell. Once we have destroyed the 3-phase pulse generators, Cortana reveals she has managed to tap into the teleportation system that Guilty Spark was using to take us to Keys. Keys.
In case it wasn't obvious, your mission to find Captain Keyes from a few missions ago did not go to plan, and thus he remains undiscovered. However, as Cortana has tapped into the teleportation network, she is able to teleport Chief to Keyes' location without too many issues.
The Covenant Battle Network reports that once the Flood was discovered, their leadership ordered all ships to abandon Halo, but they were too late. The Flood have overwhelmed the Truth and Reconciliation, and the Covenant are terrified that they will use it to escape, so they have ordered a strike team to take a hold of the situation.
Keyes is back on board the Truth and Reconciliation. However, the ship is in quite a different state than it was when you last boarded it. For one, it has crashed into the ring's surface and thus it is in ruins. This means that the Chief cannot physically get to Keyes and must now find a detour despite him telling Chief to stay away. However, shock and horror, the Flood are pouring out from everywhere in the ship and overwhelming Chief. With no other options, the Chief must take a leap of faith out of the ship and into the leaking fuel and ancient coolant pools below and the narrow desert ravines the ship has crashed above.
Now we must fight our way through Covenant and Flood in the darkness amongst luminescent pools. This is truly a situation, but an aesthetically gorgeous one at that. Halo levels in the dark are always the best in my opinion, since they allow the full beauty of the neon colours to shine. Another reason why I love them is because they let you use the sniper rifle. Through a clearing, we fight our way to a gravity lift that's luckily still operational. We should be able to get to the ship's control room from here. Delving deeper, we encounter numerous amounts of Flood. It becomes very clear that the Covenant are losing here. The Flood are piling up bodies in the corners. For what usage we can only fear. When we finally find Keyes, he's not the man we once knew.
No human life signs detected. The captain, he's one of them. We can't let the Flood get off this ring. You know what he'd expect. What he'd want us to do.
We end the level by stealing a Banshee and using it to get to the Pillar of Autumn.
The Maw. And thus we arrive at our final level.
The level begins with a long and somber shot of our trusty ship. The music that plays indicates you are approaching the finish line of your great journey. This is immediately followed by...
This thing is falling apart!
It'll hold.
We're not gonna make it!
We'll make it.
Pull up! Pull up! this, didn't you?
From here, we must get to the bridge where we can initiate the overload.
Keeping with the theme of the last few levels, this is a revisiting of the very first level, the Pillar of Autumn. It certainly has seen better days though. It features the same tight hallways from the beginning, but now the training wheels are off. The ship is considerably degenerated and is falling apart around you, so traversing the environment is slightly tougher than last time. Here you will, at various points, encounter the Covenant in the form of Covenant Special Forces. They wear black armor, even the grunts, the Flood, especially Parasite forms, and the Forerunner Sentinels. 343 Guilty Spark is, after all, still upset that you decided against firing the ring and blatantly ignoring his containment protocols, so beware of his Sentinels. This level alongside the library are the loneliest levels in the game, as they feature Chief with no one for company besides his AI companion Cortana. This will become a theme in later Halo games, but for now it is simply circumstance.
Once you arrive at the bridge, Cortana begins to set up the self-destruction sequence. This is quickly interrupted by Guilty Spark, who is in shock that you would destroy this installation, as well as the wealth of human knowledge this ship contains. He immediately stops the self-destruct sequence. Cortana detects that he is an engineer trying to take the core offline so that they can't start the countdown. To this, Chief says,
How much firepower would you need to crack one of the engine's shields?
Not much. A well-placed grenade, perhaps, but why?
We fight a hard battle in the engineering room, narrowly managing to destroy all the fusion cores. Now we are left with only 15 minutes to escape, down to 6 minutes by the time that we get to the Warthog. This is where the crazy suicide run ensues. I believe Bungie intended this part to be a bit cooler and less janky than it is, but alas, the Warthog is not the best escape vehicle. It gets stuck on a lot of things, slides around and easily tumbles over, causing you frequently to fall out of your vehicle and frantically flip it over. I'm certain there are better Warthog drivers out there than me, but I'm happy to stick to the carts. When we finally arrive at our meeting point, our evac sadly gets destroyed before our very eyes. Cortana quickly recalculates our next route and our run continues on. If this is your first try, you are likely to fail, which leads to a very sad ending of our hero dying in the explosion. After a few tries, you narrowly make it in time to a longsword.
Did anyone else make it?
Scanning. Just dust and echoes. We're all that's left. We did what we had to do for Earth. An entire Covenant armada obliterated, and the Flood. We had no choice. Halo, it's finished.
No. I think we're just getting started.
Halo, without a doubt, stands the test of time as a fantastic game. It has fun, engaging gameplay, unique level design, incredible enemy variety, and a great story to boot. The lore goes so much deeper than what you might think too. It is hinted at throughout much of the game, at times perhaps too subtle to be noticed, but it always goes deeper. It is a fantastic game to launch both an IP and a console with, and it is no surprise then that Halo came to define the Xbox brand. It reinvigorated console shooters, which previously had been quite rough outside of maybe Rare with GoldenEye 007 and Perfect Dark, and even then those games were limited in scope by the Nintendo 64's unique controller. Truly, Halo gave consoles a flagship shooter that wasn't limited by its need to be on both PC and Xbox. Without Halo, Xbox may not have been as successful, and Western game development may still have mostly been limited to PC gaming. For those interested in a more in-depth look at the background of Halo Combat Evolved, our next video will be for you, hosted by yours truly.
This game is an unlikely gem. I went from disliking it to adoring it, and I'm glad I gave it another chance. The visuals, music and story are wonderful, and the gameplay is super satisfying. I would highly recommend trying it for anyone who has doubts. Play it with a friend, or alternatively by yourself for a more atmospheric experience. From the both of us, thank you so much for watching.
Washi Box out.